Greetings, programs. Jeremy here. Today we are looking at the game Tron 2.0, which I picked up recently for a whopping $2.50 from Good Old Games. And having finished it, I feel I robbed them. When this game was originally released in 2003, it went by me like a light cycle. Finally, after one movie sequel, several video card generations, and a few consoles later, I finally stepped onto the grid. Tron 2.0 was published by Buena Vista Interactive and developed by Monolith Productions. Yes, the same Monolith that brought us games like Fear, Condemned Criminal Origins, and Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, just to name a few. For the review, this was played on PC with the Tron 2.0 Killer App mod by LDSO. From what I could tell, the last time this app was updated looked about 2014, so even the premier mod for this game is aging. I installed this mod because I knew I wanted to up-res to HD proportions, and when I found the Killer App mod, I got so much more. Not only could I play in 4K, but, well, instead of poorly listing all the changes they made, just take a look. This group was dedicated to improving and patching the game far after the developer had abandoned it solely out of love of the game. As far as I could tell, the game was still in 30 frames per second, but considering its age, I was just happy it ran at all. Avoiding any potential spoilers, the game takes place roughly 20 years after the original Tron, and you take on the role of Alan Bradley's son, Jet. I'm not sure if a name like Jet can sound any more like a video game protagonist. Alan Bradley is once again portrayed by Bruce Boxleitner, who turns in a fairly solid performance, and Cindy Morgan, who portrayed Laura, Alan and Tron's girlfriend in the original film, portrays a program named Mithria. There is some additional work by Rebecca Romijn, which was solid, but she didn't have a whole lot to do. Speaking of not a lot to do, Tron isn't exactly brimming with NPCs, but there are enough milling about to give the world a bit more authenticity, and when speaking with them, they can drop a fun reference here and there. The story itself is very in line with the Tron universe. As you play the game, you can discover emails and video files while in the machine world, giving you some much needed backstory to flesh out the universe further. There is no mistaking there are some crazy parallels to the film Tron Legacy, which wasn't made until several years later. However, I tend to believe much of that is coincidence. And though the game isn't technically canon, with a few tweaks, I made it canon in my own head. It should be noted, the story wasn't some perfect masterpiece, but neither was the original Tron. Sure, Tron tackles some fairly heady things under the surface, but at face value it was an inventive and fun adventure. This game ticks all those same boxes. Then there are the graphics, the glorious 2003 graphics. You might think I'm being sarcastic, but I promise you I'm not. Sure, the real-world characters show their age, and the face models look closer to Minecraft versions of Tron than Bruce Boxleitner, but the grid, that beautiful neon-lined world with hard edges, is rendered to near perfection. Don't get me wrong, if this game was set in present day, I would expect the world of Tron, or at least the characters inhabiting it, to look more in line with current gen. But with this game set in 2003, it adds a level of authenticity to the graphics I'm not sure any other franchise could pull off. The world feels so accurate that my inner 80s child had to take in the scenery at least once per level. Though invented prior to high definition, it is the only way I'd ever want to play this game. The sound is equally impressive, pulling directly from the original film. Even something so minor as footsteps sound exactly as it should when walking in the virtual world. The music feels suitably Tron and evokes a little Daft Punk from Tron Legacy, which came out after Tron 2.0, meaning it was completely coincidental. However, I don't think it ever really grabbed me. I was much happier when I muted the in-game music and played the glorious Tron soundtracks behind it. While I was right at home with the gameplay, I could see this being a sore spot for some. For full disclosure, I prefer using a controller when I can, but the controller support in the game is completely broken, so I use the anti-micro controller mapping software to correct this. However, the game works perfectly with keyboard and mouse as well. Tron 2.0 is considered a first-person shooter, though I don't fully agree. Your weapons assortment does include a couple blasters, some grenade-like objects you can lob, and even a sniper rifle, but I found myself using the identity disc for much of the game. I tried out all the weapons, but as the game progressed, I found myself going back to my disc variants over and over again. Shooting someone in the grid just didn't feel right to me. Pegging them in the forehead with a glowing frisbee of death somehow did. The enemy AI in Tron 2.0 is relentless. No, really, if you tick one of them off, even if they are across the map, they do not forget about you and just go about their day. They will dog you until the end of time. Enemy variety was good, not great, but what made up for it was upgrades. Some had armor over certain areas, meaning unarmored areas were their Achilles heel. Others had shields, some deflected my attacks back at me, and others lobbed glowing balls of goo. Boss variety is about the same with a few exceptions. There was one battle between myself and a program that was a personal favorite, as he actually countered many of my disc throws, which may have sent me into nostalgic nirvana. However, without spoiling, there was a major boss battle that left me pretty cold, and even feeling like the game had upscaled to a difficulty that was unfair compared to where I'd just been. Granted, I got through it eventually, but if that one boss will be remembered for the good, this was the polar opposite. One very creative idea in the game is Tron's version of ammo. Instead, you have energy, and energy is far more useful than just making your gun pew-pew your way to victory. As you play, you run into nodes which you must unlock to view emails, access new weapons and armor, and to progress through levels. Unlocking these nodes costs energy. If you don't have enough, you can't progress. So rationing your energy can be a must. Typically, there are multiple health and energy stations per level, so you can recharge. Whether running out of energy while being swarmed by enemies or hitting empty right before you unlock that last node makes energy management always a factor and an interesting mechanic. Additionally, leveling up your character has some fairly standard perks like health, increasing energy pool, etc., but your weapons, armor, and perks can be updated as well, offering some great benefits. The more you search the world, the more upgrades you will find, and I never felt I was totally overmatched, nor a god imposing my will upon puny programs. Some of this is due to your equipment wheel, which is both friend and enemy. The equipment wheel only allots you so many slots, and at the beginning of each new level, your equipment wheel changes. Some equipment can take 1, 2, or up to 3 slots in your wheel. As you upgrade your equipment, the less slots they take, so be mindful of this when upgrading equipment. Also in this screen is a unique, if not flawed, idea. Much like a backpacking trip across Europe, in your travels you may contract a virus or two. If not cleaned in the antivirus bin, these programs will infect those next to it, degrading their usage. Because cleaning takes time, this gives viruses the chance to infect other programs before the first one is even clean. While I was able to stop most outbreaks, in some levels, especially an incredibly annoying boss fight, everything kept getting infected and I had to constantly stop fighting, open the menu, and clean a program. I would go back to fighting, stop, then clean another program, and go back to fighting, and rinse, and repeat. Viruses weren't a deal breaker by any means, but they certainly didn't up my enjoyment. Speaking of things that didn't up my enjoyment, the fall damage was ridiculous. If you fell more than, say, a person's height, you could die. You could upgrade this to a degree, but it was still a nuisance. Also, it should be noted, I did get a couple of freezes while playing. This happened only during load screens, and I simply had to exit out of the game and restart to get it going again. Annoying, but definitely not a deal breaker. The light cycle gameplay is as fun inside the main campaign as it is in the free play. I mentioned I used a controller for the campaign, but I dropped those joysticks and buttons like a bad habit when the light cycles appeared. Precision was key, and enemies just dangerous enough that I didn't feel overwhelmed, but definitely knew I'd need practice. The maps in the campaign seemed reasonably balanced for the most part, but a couple of the standalone maps outside of the campaign seemed solely designed to see how fast you and the other racers died by hitting obstacles. There's a reason the big bad is usually a program and not Jigsaw from the Saw films. Thanks to LDSO, the customization of your light cycles is pretty great, and the maps, outside of those 1 or 2 I mentioned, are a lot of fun. Sadly, the multiplayer is non-existent these days, but you can race with plenty of bots, which is kind of fitting on the grid. The nostalgia factor is certainly high for this game, and I don't recommend it for anyone who isn't familiar with or a fan of the world of Tron. It simply won't work for you. This game relies heavily on your love of this property and the history you may have with it. For a retro game, Disney could reskin Tron 2.0, release it today with a $20 price tag on it, and I bet fans wouldn't feel shorted. Sure, you'd have to update the character models, but the core is all there. Honestly, the further I traveled the grid, the more often I had to pause the game and shout, "Why, Disney? Why have you forsaken Tron?" I could never understand why Disney was sleeping on the Tron franchise, and after playing this game, I know they don't have a clue of what they've got. Right now, I'm just thankful Tron 2.0 exists for fans and extremely grateful to a group like LDSO for keeping it alive for as long as they did. Sure, the campaign kind of just ends. It was definitely more of a whimper than a bang, but even that didn't hurt my enjoyment, nor should it yours. This is a snapshot of not only the Tron world, but of 2003 gaming. It's a great combo. Do you agree with this assessment of Tron 2.0? Have you played it in the past and still enjoy it today? What other nostalgic games do you think I should review on this channel? Please leave those comments below. For more on Tron or similar film and gaming properties, please subscribe to One Protagonist. Also, please hit that like button as well as share this with your friends if you think they'd be interested. I'm trying to grow One Protagonist and will appreciate any help you provide. That's all for now. Until next time, programs. End of line.